These are stories of outdoor adventure and expert advice from folks with calloused hands. I'm James Nash, and this is the Six Ranch Podcast. And here in the tobacco roots too, I didn't spend a ton of time over in this mountain range, but the times that I had here were always so adventurous, and it's an interesting range. You know, it's comes straight out of the valley. The way it transitions so abruptly from steep timber down into grass, and then you've got the Jefferson River here and all the cottonwoods along it, and you get right up into the craggy peaks. I just had grand adventures here every time I was in them.
I can believe that. I imagine them. I mean, I'm looking out the window and I'm like,
Yeah.
I wonder if anyone has skied up there. You know, I wonder how many people are actually up there right now. It seems pretty empty for the most part. Like,
Right?
people aren't really out here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I almost wonder if, like, the allure of some of the more famous names that are close by helps, you know, keep this place great.
I think so. I
Yeah.
really think so. Because I tell people where we are, and a lot of people say, they're like, oh, white sulfur. I'm like, yeah, sure, white sulfur.
Sure.
That's
Way off. And Bend is in Eastern Oregon.
yeah,
Let's
exactly.
just move on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, yep, that's where we are. Yep, head out there.
Okay, a little bit of backstory here for the audience. Last week, you were driving to Oregon to visit some family, came through the Six Ranch. We recorded a show. It was almost 2 hours long, which is twice what I normally do. And I spent the next few days just thinking about how much more interesting you are than what I allowed you to express in that. And it was eating me alive. And I was coming out back to Montana on this trip, which coincidentally is pretty close to where you live. So I was like, I know this is going to be a pain, but like I text you and I was like, hey, like I feel like I need to do a better job here. So this morning, rolled up here to your place. You were packing an entire roll of woven wire with one hand out across the cactus because you're trying to fence out some goats. You've got some somewhat ornamental but potentially food turkeys running around
Yep.
that are your friends.
They're kind of like little feathered dogs at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. Got to meet your dogs, got to meet your chickens and your turkeys. When you say Chaos Farms, you mean it. And chaos is one of those words like awesome, where people just use it to death and they don't understand what it means. But
Yep.
if we get into chaos as a word, like at the physics level,
Like a theory.
Yeah.
Sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's what this is.
Totally.
Chaos is where something can happen where you cannot measure what caused it. And me showing up here and seeing so many unexpected things and knowing more about the trajectory of your life and where you are now, where you started doesn't feel like a potential cause for where you are.
Totally.
Right? So
Yeah,
that's chaos.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's like, I love the idea of entropy. You know,
Yes,
everything
I was thinking
just
about entropy this morning because my coffee was too hot.
there you go. Yeah. It's never going to come back to a point of control. Everything is just into infinity, essentially.
Yes.
It's just evolving into chaos,
Yes.
which for a long time I fought, I'd say, like in my younger days. And now, this whole situation that I've gotten myself into has helped me just honestly completely embrace it. And kind of now I think seek it out, which I don't know if that's a super healthy coping mechanism, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, let's talk about Jesse a little bit.
Sure.
Explain Jesse.
Jesse he's currently not here because he's at his shop in Bozeman making knives. He's a knife maker. He forges them. He does some stainless steel stuff too, but we're both butchers. We met at the meat shop where we worked for a couple of years. He ran the slaughter floor, and he made and continues to make every knife that we use collectively to do mobile slaughter, processing, game processing. I do meat birds, for myself and for a local farm. And so he makes all those tools. He was in the Marine Corps for 4 years, and I think has been out for 8 now, but he was a machine gunner in the Marine Corps. So
It's a great job.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's tough because machine guns are heavy.
Yeah, and he's like,
Yeah.
he's 69 inches tall. He wants let that be known. And he's not a big dude, you know. He's like, he's got some serious knee and back problems now that
Sure.
are service related.
Part of the deal.
Yeah, but that was a heavy gun to carry around.
I was down at a Navy base in Florida for one thing or another, and there was all kinds of service members from all different branches, and they're coming through this desk, and you know, the Army guy comes through and asks for his MOS, and he's like, you know, water filtration or whatever, and Navy guys come through and they're like rust removal, and then a Marine comes through and you know, he's like artillery, and Navy guy's like, all right, cool, that's a job, and the next Marine comes through and it's like, I'm a machine gunner. It's like, that's what I'm talking about.
That's what I wanted to
hear. Those are real jobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep. Yeah. Machine gunning also, I think is wildly misunderstood, because people think of it as like some kind of Al Pacino just like spraying a gun around. It's incredibly precise, and there's a huge amount of geometry that goes into it. Like you need to be very good at geometry and algebra to an extent, and definitely trig to be a good machine gunner, and to be able to do those things, which most people can't do if their life depended upon it, in a highly stressful environment.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the chaos element of it, right?
Chaos.
Like he really thrives in those environments. Stuff starts to go down and he just gets super calm, and he's very level-headed, and
it's the best.
Yeah, whether you're in it as a machine gunner or, you know, like on the kill floor and some sort of crazy shit's happening, and and out here, I mean, he kind of holds it all down.
And when you say he's making knives, does that mean that he's taken a piece of metal, forge, hammer, anvil, and making a knife?
Yep. So he when he started out, basically he got out of the Marine Corps and he was kind of working some odd jobs, and then COVID hit. Well, no, he was doing it before COVID, but he was just kind of bored, and he literally Googled how to make, and the first thing that came up was knife, and he's like, oh, that sounds interesting. Clicked on it, watched some YouTube videos, and thought, I could probably do that. And he built his own forge, which he still had when we met, and he was using it. And like the blower element was just a hairdryer that he had like wired to the ceiling, and it was hectic. But he was making everything that he had up to that point with that forge that he made for probably $40. Yeah. And so he'll take, I mean, we have knives that we use that are made out of coil spring from a truck, you know, or he's got leaf spring stuff. He made one out of so we use captive bolts for slaughter, which is a whole other story, but it's essentially like
No Country for Old Men.
Yeah, but that's pneumatic, and we use, it's essentially powder. I mean, it's gas charge.
Gotcha.
So it's handheld. But there's a rod that comes out that stuns the animal, and sometimes they'll break when you're using them for long enough. And so he took that and forged it into a knife. So we have a boning knife made out of it.
That's rugged.
It's super cool. It's the lightest knife I've ever held.
That is so rugged.
Really cool. It doesn't hold an edge the greatest because of the kind of steel that it is for it to be the implement that it was before it was a knife. But it is. It's really cool looking. And just for what it is.
Okay. Let's talk about knives. We're in it now. I think that a lot of people, especially within the hunting space, who claim to be knife makers are the farthest thing from it. They're knife marketers, and they're buying pieces of metal and sending them through CNC machines that are routing them out, and eventually somebody like an actual human is going to put their hands on it and sharpen it a little bit, slap the scales on the handle, put it in a fancy box, and send it out the door. Yes, that's a knife. Yes, it's made. It is a very long shot away from what we're talking about with Jesse.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, another thing that hunters have bought into that drives me bonkers that you just mentioned is they think that the ultimate knife is a knife that retains its sharpness forever.
Yeah.
And there's no free lunch in metallurgy.
No, that's just not possible. That's just not going to.
It's not possible. It's also not always preferable either, because the harder the steel is, like a very hard steel, yes, it will retain its edge for a little bit longer. There's only a few percentages of margin between a soft knife steel and a hard knife steel.
It's literally, I mean, the difference between carbon steel and stainless steel is a percentage of chromium, right? And there's, it's really negligible,
right?
Honestly, but
now that very hard steel is going to be brittle and it's going to be inflexible. And the knives that butchers use tend to have some flexibility in them, especially boning knives.
Mm-hmm.
If you get used to using a flexible boning knife and then you go back to a knife that can't flex, you feel like your fingers have all been tied together and you're being asked to like type out a document. It's awful.
See, I only use the knives that Jesse makes, and I have some carbon steel ones. The thing with carbon steel, it's a little more upkeep, right? They'll get rusty. You don't want to use bleach on them.
Sure.
And that's the stuff that he's forging. The stainless stuff that he makes is what I tend to use for my like production work.
Yeah.
So when I'm killing 400 chickens in a day, or trying to get through just endless animals during game season or whatever. But I don't use a flexible boning knife. It's just, it's not going to move at all. And that's what I like to do. But I have flexible boning knives.
But that's what you're used to using.
That's what I'm used to using.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Anyways, these super hard knives that don't flex are pretty brittle.
Yeah, they are.
And they will break much sooner than another knife. And
yeah,
then
if you get it in a socket or something and you're wrenching on it, it will just snap off.
It can happen so fast.
So easily.
And then you've got a little sharp piece of metal in there that you've got to get out so it doesn't end up in somebody's food.
Yeah.
And then a lot of times during that process, it's going to end up in you.
Totally.
Right?
Oh, I have a scar on my thigh from I stuck a knife straight into my thigh trying to quarter an elk.
Yeah.
But it'll get in your finger. It'll get in somewhere. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the last thing that I'll say while I'm spending my time here talking trash about super hard knives is, dude, once they're dull, they're so hard to bring back to life.
They are.
They're such a pain. So, previously you and I talked about how we would be pretty happy to take a butter knife out of a kitchen drawer, sharpen it, and skin with that.
Yep.
And that is not a fancy piece of steel, but it would work great. And I could resharpen that thing in 30 seconds on a honing rod.
Yeah. My old boss, when I was learning to skin pigs, I don't do it the way he does it because I don't want to destroy my shoulder, but he was convinced that you could skin a pig with a spoon.
Yeah.
And I saw him do it.
Yeah.
And it didn't look fun.
Right.
But just the sort of marketing that has gone on into this idea that you have to have this super special, super expensive knife to do any of this stuff. You don't, it's like if I've watched a dude skin a pig with a spoon, you don't need a super expensive.
And if you're going to spend the money, spend it on an artist.
Totally.
Like spend it on somebody who used a piece of metal that has a story.
Mm-hmm.
Like the rod on the gun that has killed thousands and thousands of animals.
Right.
Like that thing has a story. The spring steel from a leaf spring on a semi-truck that's traveled all over the country hauling God knows what. Like that has a story.
Like tools, that your grandpa used to use, and you can get that forged into a knife. He's done that a few times, and it is so cool.
Rifle barrels.
Yeah.
Like if you shoot out a rifle barrel, take it down to a knife maker who, has a trip hammer or a sledgehammer and like have them make you a knife out of that. And then you're taking your granddad's old hunting rifle that you finally shot the barrel out of, and now it's going to be 3 different knives that you can carry around and will last for generations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, spend your money like that.
Exactly.
Good grief. Getting all spun up about knives.
We go off. There's stuff that I wouldn't, it's like there's stuff that no one else needs to hear me say that Jesse and I kind of rant about sometimes where we're like, what is going on? And
it's so crazy.
It's crazy. Because we both started out using, Victorinox, and
Yeah.
there's different brands like that. There's, I think, one out of New Zealand that people are super into. But if you're not, I mean, honestly, I was going to say if you're not doing production work, but even if you're doing production work, like our head butcher at the shop when I started there, he'd been cutting meat forever, and he had wood handle Victorinox knives, and they were super sharp. The upkeep on them was pretty minimal, and we'd together cut 10 beef in a day, and he wouldn't sharpen his knives.
Yeah.
They were infinitely sharper than anything I was using, 'cause I didn't know what I was doing. But
Yeah.
Victorinox, and that dude was basically running that shop.
Yeah. Victorinox, Forstner, which is the same company, Dexter
Yep.
is another good one. Gosh, I have a Mercer boning knife. That's a pretty stiff boning knife, and I really love that thing for certain cuts. But yeah, man, if I've got a lamb skinner and a 5-inch boning knife, like I can take on the world.
Totally.
I can cut up anything with that. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't. I mean, I am saying this, but I don't actually do it. That you don't need a ton of knives to get the job done. I use a bunch of different knives because it's fun, and I have the opportunity to try different stuff out that Jesse's making. But really, I mean, in terms of if you're worried about needing to have 6 different things that you're using to, skin the animal, gut the animal, fancy tool, you got a gutting hook on there, you got all that. And it's like, I've never used a gut hook in my life, and I've gutted thousands of animals.
Right.
It's like, just figure out, it's easy to do it without one, but there's all these tools that get marketed to hunters especially. And it's just super unnecessary. Like, I'll walk through some of those sporting goods stores, and I'm like, you've got to be kidding me that this kind of stuff is for sale.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So I consider you, from what I know about you, I think that as much as anything that you are a meat philosopher.
Yeah. Okay. I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
And we spent a lot of time last week in Oregon talking about like how you got this way.
Sure.
I want to hit some of the high points of that so that people understand what a complicated creature you are. You have at least 3 degrees.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In what?
My undergrad was in journalism. Then I went to culinary school for 2 years. I didn't graduate. I had a couple classes left, and I just moved on. I was in grad school at the same time, so I continued on with grad school. So I have a master's degree. That program was called Food Systems and Society, and then I have a master's certificate in natural resource policy and management.
You are currently studying at least 6 languages?
Yes. Like, I'm on my Duolingo streak. Will hit 900 days tomorrow.
Big day.
Yeah, big day.
Okay. How often would you say you consume a book?
Right now, with everything going on, I've slowed down my reading a little bit, and I'm sort of like, I have a really hard time sticking with one book at the moment, just because it's like I want to learn everything at once, and if I could just hold all the books and somehow absorb the knowledge, that would be pretty sweet. But I'm trying right now to keep on track at 2 books a month. And so I'm finishing 2 books a month, but reading probably, I probably have 20 books stacked next to my bed right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm reading probably 20 books at one time.
What book would you say had the largest impact on your life?
There are a couple. And yeah, I lived in Australia for a bit, and I worked for a French chef down there who terrified me when I started for him. And I read Kitchen Confidential when I was there, and that sort of changed my trajectory. I decided I wasn't scared of the chef. I was going to learn from him, and that was huge. And then I have spent quite a bit of time in Spain, and I read Mark Kurlansky's Basque History of the World along with Salt. And Mark Kurlansky's stuff is just...
Salt is unreal.
So good. So good.
Salt is unreal.
Unreal.
Salt, okay. Mandatory reading.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mandatory reading.
Absolutely.
And I'm typically ride or die on audiobooks these days.
Oh, yeah.
Because
I wish I could listen to audiobooks.
Yeah.
I zone out.
A lot
hard.
going on. I zone in. And it's actually really disruptive for me if I'm listening to an audiobook and then I get like a phone call or something like that. Like it's brutal. It's like somebody just kicked me in the face. But fortunately, in a lot of places that I'm traveling, there's no cell service just because of where I live. So I get that break. Love me an audiobook. And physically, I can endure an audiobook for much longer than I can a paper book.
Sure, like sitting down and just powering through. Yeah.
I physically get too uncomfortable and can't consume as much of the book as my brain wants. So an audiobook helps me with that. Salt is one that you should find in paper.
Absolutely. Yeah. Mine is like the cover's almost ripped off and I've written all over it and everything. It is fantastic. And it really, I mean, Salt tells a bit of the story that he tells in the Basque History of the World. But I read both of those, and I've always really been interested in history, just, reading about it, super nerdy about all kinds of stuff. But
because the journalism that you wanted to get into was going to be about the history and sort of social aspects of food. Yeah,
well, not initially. I thought I would be a sports reporter. I used to write about the NBA for Bleacher Report. Like that was what I wanted to do, and I got a little bit burnout on that. And
because you're also like a professional half pipe skier at one time.
Definitely not professional, but like I competed a lot. Yeah, I was skiing park, and that consumed.
Did you win?
I won a couple of them. Yeah.
All right. Did you ever get paid to do it?
I got paid a little bit. I got a bunch of free stuff, so that was,
we'll call it semi-professional.
The girls now, the girls that are skiing now, I'm so glad I didn't have to. I couldn't have done it. I mean, they're doing triples and quads, and it's like, if you could hit a jump and hit a rail when I was doing it, you might win. So. But no, I was doing that.
They need shoulders to stand on.
Exactly. And we all, broke ourselves off doing that stuff. And these girls now are crushing it. It's my favorite thing to watch. So I'm just glad that I'm not doing that anymore. So yeah, I was super into that world. Wanted to do NBA writing. Really had a hard time breaking into that and kind of decided it wasn't for me. And I mean, it was traveling to Spain. I was there quite a bit and reading about the food history of Spain, that it was like everything that I was super interested came together right there, right? And I don't know if you ever listen to Dan Carlin stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I love Dan Carlin.
Hardcore history?
Yes. But I've heard it said about him that he's addicted to context. Mm-hmm. And I would say I heard someone say that about him. I'm like, that's it. That's what it is. It's contextual history it combines all these sort of disparate things that you wouldn't think of as all affecting each other. But then you look at it and you're like, there's no way it doesn't, right? And it's like, we kind of, in the way that we learn in school and the way that we just, see the world in general, I think it's really easy to compartmentalize and view things as existing in a vacuum. And that's just not the way things are. And so looking at food history, and it's environmental history, it's social history, it's war, it's, climate history. It's fascinating.
Religion,
exactly.
One of the light bulb moments for me in literary theory was when I began to understand that in every enduring piece of literature, what was written could only have been written at that time.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So without the context surrounding that content, it would have been impossible to string those words together in the way that they were.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's probably true of everything that is ever written, but in the things that endure, the stuff that becomes classics, that are important, that are canonized literature, what's truly special is it can only be written during that time. Like it has to have come from that environment, but it also means that it has to resonate during different times, right?
Sure.
And if you can accomplish that, then you can write something that's important.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, I know you love Hemingway, and Hemingway has been sort of a in terms of food and travel and that same sort of idea, like written in a time period where he was only going to exist as he did at that time,
Yeah.
right? And
I don't know that he would get published today.
right, I don't think so. I don't think people are reading or interested in that kind of writing now. It's too, I don't know if it's too cerebral, but it's too much work maybe, but I mean, when I travel, and one of my favorite things to do is to travel by myself, and I will pick a place or multiple places and just go. And it's usually because no one else has time to go or they don't want to go to the place. But it's funny how Hemingway sort of pops up in a lot of the places that I've gone, and I'll sort of seek out. I like to be places where people were. I like that feeling of like the person who's right here, So like I've been to Madrid quite a few times, and like sitting in my apartment reading The Sun Also Rises, and then finding the bar that he would go to and going and sitting there in
a clean, well-lighted place.
Yeah,
perhaps?
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And all the waiters have their, black coats on and ties, and you can kind of sit there until 3 a.m. if you want to,
Right.
and eat your fried whitebait and drink beer, and like going to Paris and buying A Movable Feast at Shakespeare and Co. in Paris. Just like it's so nerdy, and it's so, but it's trying to make that connection, and just, I don't know, literature, food, travel, it's all the same to me.
When I was in Key West last year, I wanted to go down to Hemingway's place there, and walk down to it, and they're like, "So sorry, we're closed for a private event." I was like, And I look back in there, and somebody had rented it out for a wedding.
Oh, really?
And I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
He would freaking hate this.
Right? Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. Oh my God. He would be.
Right?
Yeah.
Isn't that wild? Like, somebody wants to have their wedding at Hemingway's house at Key West, presumably because of that connection with Hemingway, but also so misunderstanding the dude that, like, he would be out there drunk with a shotgun. Like,
right. I mean, I think about that a lot with like after Bourdain passed away, and kind of the way that things went with trying to memorialize him, and I just imagine he would be just beside himself.
Yeah.
See, it's like, what are you guys doing?
Right.
Like, yeah, it's just
was
incongruous.
that hard on you when he killed himself?
That was rough. That was rough because he was so, just his writing was so influential in like getting me into essentially what I do now. And I really appreciated his perspective on the world. I think the world is missing a perspective like that now, where he really could speak to everyone without being condescending and without sort of putting his own opinion on things in terms of telling you what to think, and I think we really missed that.
Yeah, he was a vector.
Perspective. Yeah.
His bias was his observation and his experience, but
he was very open about that too.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But really, he was a vector for people to observe food and travel in a way that that they probably could not have done without him.
Mm-hmm. One of my favorite episodes is his West Virginia episode, because he's from New York, and he lives in that sort of world, and then he goes to West Virginia, and they're hunting and eating squirrels, and they're shooting guns, and they're doing all this stuff, and I think people were shocked by that. They didn't think he would go do that, and he just the whole time talked about how much he loved it and how lovely those people were, and it was like just stepping into all kinds of worlds and showing just complete respect to the people doing it, and I think really shocking people who would never see that side of things, and changing people's minds.
Something that I see a lot now from city folks is they'll come out into those environments, whether it's abroad or just in rural parts of their own states, and they think that if they just sort of observe people doing their thing or listen to them, that's enough.
Yeah.
But the key difference there is open participation.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah. Get in there.
I don't care to be heard, which is an odd thing for a podcaster to say. but really that's not at all what's important to me.
Sure.
Being heard and being listened to are wildly different things.
Yes.
And I think that the distinction is just a level of participation, and it doesn't necessarily have to be physical participation in something, but
no, but I mean, I think
yeah.
even in listening to your podcast, you're often asking questions that I'm like, other people having this conversation wouldn't have asked that question, or the way you ask people to elaborate on things or explain something that they said that someone who wasn't quite listening would pass over. Where you're like, what does that mean? What is that? Or someone will say, oh, it's just whatever. And you're like, no, I want to know more. Please tell me about it. Like really digging in deep. And those people do want to talk about it. But unless you invite someone to talk about it, they might not offer it up in the first place. And that's where the good stuff is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on the third floor.
Yeah, totally.
Sometimes it's like the basement, third floor, but
It's like really steep stairs. And
but no, you've got to ask why.
Oh, I mean, that's interesting you say that, because I think all the time I feel like a little kid sometimes that, they'll say, well, why is it like this? And you give them an answer. Well, why? And you're like, oh, that's a good question. Well, it's like, because of this. Well, why? And I think my brain does that, where I can't take a simple answer, doesn't do it for me. So I'll get part of it, and I don't think that's the whole story. So why is it like that? Or why is that person doing that? Or, what is the motivation behind that? How did we get here? Whatever it is. And it's just continuing to ask why into infinity to get to the root of it, which whatever it is, you probably never really do, but keep searching.
Yeah. There's an innumerable number of things in the Marine Corps that drive me crazy and don't make any sense. But at its core, the Marine Corps is about executing missions.
Yeah.
And that comes down to a mission statement. And the mission statement starts with when, who, what, and where. And it can be read as a sentence. And then at the end of all of that, every single time, the next words are in order to. Right?
Yeah.
And then that IOT, that in order to statement, gets clarified. I loved that so much, and I could sink my teeth into that, and it was incredibly important to me, and it's explained as incredibly important. They're like, this is the part that you have to get right.
Sure.
You don't necessarily have to nail down the when, the who, like the what, yet you got to get in the zone. The where for sure, but why is critical, because if everybody understands why they're doing all of those things, then they can come up with their own methods to accomplish them.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You don't say how. That is never part of a mission statement, right? But why is critical. And I think that's why little kids ask is they are curious. And if you can maintain that curiosity into adulthood, and you don't just accept the face value of something and you say, well, why is that? Or you ask yourself, like if you're doing something repeatedly on your own and you aren't occasionally reflecting about why you're doing it, then you can slide into mediocrity.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that with myself a lot, and I've in the last 2 years of sort of having my entire life thrown into absolute chaos, and sort of either picking up on habits or dropping ones, and it can be for positive or negative, but sort of just you get months or years into something and trying to stop and look back, like, why am I doing this thing that's not helping me, right? And it's a coping mechanism or whatever it is, and then I feel like, this year has been a lot of that, where it's like, okay, I've gotten into this rhythm of getting by, essentially, and I don't know it's the best, and I know I do things that I could quit doing or start doing that would move things forward, but just constantly, check in with yourself daily or weekly or something, and ask yourself why you're doing stuff and be really honest, And
it's okay to not know.
Totally.
But it's not okay to not ask.
Yeah.
What
is it? Seek self-improvement?
Know yourself and seek self-improvement?
I get that one from Jesse. He's like, you know what? You probably could have been a Marine, but you would have asked way too many questions. He's like, you would have been a good pilot. I said, well, man, when I was little.
Oh, that's a backhanded compliment.
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. Believe me. It's like, oh, I see. I see what you're saying there. I think he was trying to say that. So I was obsessed with fighter jets when I was little.
Uh-huh.
Obsessed, and then I just like forgot about it. But I've told him recently, and we were talking about last time, getting my pilot's license, and he's like, oh, that's interesting because maybe that's what you would have been good at.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know
you're
about
good
that.
at lots of stuff.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So, you started out living in Central Oregon, got into skiing. You had all this travel, all this education that's moved you around, and then you found yourself working in a butcher shop, and then eventually on the kill floor. How has your sense of what life means changed after participating in killing and processing thousands and thousands of animals for food, largely for people who you don't know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's changed drastically. I mean, I'm a different person than I was when I started, in a way that I recognize. I mean, it's very obvious to me. I don't know that it would be super obvious to anyone else, but just the way I honestly, I think about death every second of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of the only thing that I'm always thinking about, and not in. I mean, I think that would seem sort of morbid, and to me, it's just not. It's like it affects how it really, the thing it's affected the most is how I am with other people.
Well, it is morbid if we go by what the word morbid means.
Sure. Oh, sure. Yeah. Yeah.
But if you take most people's connotation of morbidity, where it's fearful and to be avoided,
Yep.
and folks spend so much time knowing that they're going to die but never realizing that it's going to happen to them,
Mm-hmm.
that if you talk about death, then you're being morbid, as if that's negative and not
Right.
not something to consider.
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, it's kind of a joke amongst my friends that if you've spoken to me twice, we've had a conversation about death. Like, I don't have to know you at all. I'll bring it up. It'll somehow come
I'll
up.
bring it up.
I'll bring it. Like, I can. It's just it's all consuming to me. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
It's all that. I mean, we're here for such a short amount of time, and I just watch people doing things or treating each other a certain way, and it's like, do you know that you're not going to be here in probably, I mean, hopefully, you've got a certain number of decades left, but like, this isn't permanent. And all this kind of crazy shit that people do to, I think, avoid thinking about it, avoid dealing with it, to try to put it off. I mean, and food to me is a huge factor in that, because I look at, I mean, having traveled throughout Europe and looking at religion and food and just the deep cultural ties between those things. And then we get here, and there's in the US, I think there's a real disconnect from death, but I think that's what's led to our like extreme diet culture, and really not enjoying food, and kind of food is fuel, or it's you should punish yourself for eating too much of it. And it's, I mean, the number of diet foods and all the information that we get about how to lose weight and the weight loss drugs, and it's like, but you're gonna die, and it doesn't. I mean, you should be healthy, but I don't know. It's the thing that I enjoy most in my daily life is eating. I was just in Portland for 5 days and just ate my way through Portland, and it was like, I'm hurting now, but it was great.
How was OP?
Oh God, it was awesome. Eli is so great.
What a legend.
Oh, he's awesome. Yeah, no, we sat at a.
See what I mean?
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Like, and he and I, and I'm sure you too, that our brains sort of work the same way, where you can just, it's like, I always describe my brain as like a room full of bouncy balls, sort of, and I'll just grab one and I might let it go and grab another one mid-sentence, but that, we're just talking. It was hours, and then we sat down, and I mean, his restaurant has tons of great seafood, which I don't eat a ton of seafood out here, so oysters and mussels and anchovies and rockfish sandwiches. And man, that was good.
Yeah.
That was so good. But see, in my mind, like that's what matters. And to be worrying about calories to the extent that it like you suffer and it makes your relationship suffer or you're just unhappy. I just think if people thought about death more, had a little closer connection to it, I don't know. And maybe we're not that it's not something to be, I don't know if fear is the right word. It is scary. I mean, I totally understand that. I wouldn't tell someone like, don't worry, it'll be fine. You know,
Is it
like
because of the uncertainty?
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I mean, geez, we just get inundated with death, you know, in all sorts of media. I mean, you open your Instagram and it's like, it's a lot sometimes. And I don't know how you couldn't be scared when that is your kind of our only relationship with death, unless you're doing slaughter or hunting, or if you're, you know, a mortician. Like my grandpa was a mortician, and I remember being little and thinking that was the weirdest thing. And now I'm like, man, I wish he was around so I could ask him about that, you know? And he was such a nice guy. And I really wonder if that influenced how he dealt with people, you know, in
Sure.
a very loving way, because he saw it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like I'm living a bonus life, you know, because I came so close to being killed in combat multiple times that I should have. Like I can't sort out the physics on why I'm still alive. And because of that, like if I suddenly realized that I was in fact dead and that these years after have really only been like moments of like final brain synapse as I die, I wouldn't be at all surprised by that.
Wow.
So this is all just
Wow.
bonus for me.
Yeah.
So I was able to let go of a lot of fear really even before those missions started, just because I kind of knew the odds.
Sure.
So now it's a little bit like, well, shit, what do I do? I guess
Yeah.
whatever I want.
Did it take you a while to get to that mindset? I mean, was it hard to get into that mindset as sort of looking at it as a freedom?
Mm-hmm. I think so. There was a lot of years of like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Or, you know, do I owe something?
Like some anxiety about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like what's the point? There's a lot of that. And
Yeah.
I still have those thoughts sometimes of like, well, why? What?
Yeah.
What is any of this important?
Yeah. Yeah.
But no, mostly I think like, wow, I get I got like the little bonus life thing. Like
That's
I
awesome.
hit the star on Mario Kart and like I get an extra lap. Like how sick is this?
I think that's obvious. I mean, to me it is. And I don't know. I just barely know your story, but I have thought about that with you, where just watching what you do, and I'm like, I wonder if that's what he's doing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah. So I listened on my drive to Montana. I listened to one of Sebastian Junger's new books, In My Time of Dying. Have you come across that one yet?
I have not read it yet, but I was just listening to it. I've listened to a couple interviews with him about it.
Yeah.
And man,
That's an interesting one.
Is it?
Yeah. So he almost died.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to spoil anything for you. You learn that pretty early on in the book. He almost dies. And he has this near-death experience of being outside of his body and starts to learn about all the other people who have had similar experiences, and it makes him consider afterlife, which is a huge question. One of the biggest questions in all of humanity throughout all of time is what happens after we die.
I think it's the question. I mean,
Right.
it's,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which is so fascinating, to spend the sure thing of your life, like spending much effort of wondering about that.
Yeah.
Right. But it is a question. It tugs at all of us, and certainly tugged at him. And then he perhaps got a glimpse into it. Then he got into quantum entanglement, which initially is what that's where my mind went when he was describing his near-death experience. I was like, I wonder if quantum entanglement has anything to do with this.
Huh.
What's your basic understanding of quantum entanglement?
Almost nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's basically mine too. But basically that you could have two entangled photons, and regardless how far apart they are, whatever happens with one simultaneously occurs with the other.
Okay.
And that leads physicists to think about parallel, multiple, infinite universes, things like that, right? Now, if we get to the biological and molecular level of food, I think, okay, if I plant this carrot seed in the soil and it grows because of the nutrients in the soil and photosynthesis, which we really can't explain, and suddenly it like eventually becomes a carrot, and then I eat that thing, I'm consuming molecules that were living carrot. And those molecules, because they are nutrients, some of them are now going to rearrange and they're going to become James.
Sure.
But they started out as carrot, but before that they were something else, right?
Yeah.
They might have been earthworm, they might have been woolly mammoth.
Yep.
Probably bits of both.
Right. Yep.
Right? Because molecules are small and many.
Yeah.
If there was entanglement with any of those quantums, the things that build those molecules, then I wonder if there's quantum entanglement with our relatives.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
in this way, could this energy, which can neither be created nor destroyed, have a connection that goes beyond life or goes beyond conscious life?
Yeah.
That'd be wild.
Oh, that's super interesting.
Yeah.
I want to read that book badly. The interviews that I've heard with him, he touches on that, but he doesn't get I mean,
yeah, he's
that's
got
a lot
he's
to
got
get
to sell
into
books.
in an hour interview.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. The part that I really appreciate that he has talked about is that he says people are like, are you religious now? He's like, oh, I didn't find God. He's like, there's still no proof. And everyone's like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
You saw your dead dad. He told you that it was okay. And he's like, okay.
Yeah.
He went that way. He went the quantum entanglement instead of saying like, oh, that's my proof of God or whatever you want to call it. That is fascinating to me that you would take that train of thought, but I mean, the complexity of it and that's wild. Your thing about the carrot, I think about it. I've had this like essay in my head that I want to write that's sort of touches on all this, but I got to eat grizzly bear a few summers ago.
Mm-hmm.
The guy from Alaska brought some stuff down, and I don't know that I'd even had bear before, but just like eating that, it changed my perspective on on my body and who I was and what I was. And I thought, I want to be made of grizzly bear, you know, like I want to be made of the carrots that were, maybe a woolly mammoth, maybe whatever it was. And just thinking like, I'm super interested in that whole thing in how we become who we are and what we consume in order to build ourselves, whether it's like physically or spiritually or mentally or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the food side of things, when we're talking about grizzly bears and carrots and every other damn thing that we eat, we think about death in this really interesting way, right? Because if I shoot an elk, right? They're like, well, you killed an elk. Yeah, I did. But what else did I kill? Trillions of bacteria, protozoa, and fungi that were living inside of that elk.
Mm-hmm.
Every single one of which is older as an organism than Homo sapiens. But did I really kill them? Or did they just become something else?
Right. Yep.
Like it's no longer in the shape of an elk. Some of it goes into the soil. Some of it goes in the air. Some of it goes to that freaking tree right there. And then some of it goes into my freezer and eventually into me and my friends and my family.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's left goes to my dog because sometimes he steals it off my plate. Right? So we're all elk now.
Yeah.
And that elk is just made out of stuff that was other stuff before that.
Yeah.
And that's why I really wonder about our our perception of death as tinted by consciousness.
Hmm.
And if you're going to be a butcher where you are the middleman of death,
Yeah.
right? In this food circle of the charismatic death, at least.
Sure.
Because spinach doesn't have a soul.
Right. Right. And plenty of stuff's dying out there. I mean, I could talk for hours about that too,
Right.
about, the idea that there is a bloodless diet or a deathless diet.
Yeah.
There just isn't.
No,
But yeah, being
certainly
a
not.
butcher, you're obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're the middleman.
Yeah.
Whether a hunter is bringing you, an animal that they killed to process, or somebody is bringing you, a farm animal that was raised, you stand, with a knife in your hand between that animal's life and it becoming a product that can be turned into food with heat.
Yeah.
Right. That's an interesting place to be for somebody who is as pensive and considerate as you, to stand there and think about it while also doing it.
Yeah, there's definitely someone asked me like a week ago about they were going to kill their chickens, and I had said I was about to kill mine, and they said, "Can you elaborate on how you dissociate during slaughter?" And she said, "I want to." She was kind of joking. I've talked to her before, but it was sort of like, it sucks to feel my feelings doing these things that I want to do and that I feel called to do, but they're really hard. And how do you dissociate from that? And my answer was, I don't at all. I really don't.
Yeah. What a wild assumption that you should.
Right. Exactly. And yeah, exactly. That's exactly, I think people, because I do this job where essentially, I do wild game processing and I cut most of the animals that I slaughter, but slaughter is the thing that I do, and it is the thing that I want to do. I mean, if I had one choice to give up all the rest of it, I would choose slaughter. And I think that for a lot of people, that means that it's easy for me, and so I'm just the person that does it because it's easy for me. And it's not easy. It's not. There were days on the kill floor where I'd just be having a bad day. I'm like tired, or I've got a old dog and maybe she wasn't doing so well, and I'm out there killing sheep, which I raised when I was little and had some pretty emotional attachments to. And I remember them going off to the slaughterhouse at fair, and it would all sort of hit me sometimes, and I'd walk into the cooler and maybe cry for 30 seconds because it's just like I had to get something out. I was feeling super emotional, and go back out and I'm fine. And it's not that I'm not thinking about it. It's not that I'm dissociating from it. It's just like I'm not stopping myself from feeling however this makes me feel today, right? And it's like you're killing animals my hand, like when I kill beef, I'll often just stick my fingers in their nose to hold their head in place so I can put the captive bolt on their forehead. Or like when I do sheep, I'm straddling them and I'm holding their chin in my hand and holding the captive bolt to their forehead. And it's like, they're the last thing I'm the last thing that they see. I'm the last person that touches them. And it's my job to do it as best I can, as quickly as I can, and as compassionately as I can. And if I was dissociated from it, I wouldn't be able to do it.
Yeah.
I would quit.
Yeah.
I couldn't do it. And yeah, I don't do the job because it's easy. I think if it became easy, I would not want to do it anymore.
The words slaughter and butcher, the way they get used outside of the profession is so wildly inaccurate.
Yeah.
Right?
To butcher something is like to totally screw something up.
Yeah.
Right.
And slaughter is like unhinged and in surplus.
Yeah.
Farthest thing from the truth.
Oh, yeah.
A friend of mine in Australia, Benny Solaris, I hunted with him down there last year. When we showed up to this remote cattle station to go hunting, they're calling him Butcher. I was like, that's a really cool nickname. Such a cool nickname. And, then we killed some axis deer. We had some more axis deer hanging that they'd killed the day before. I pull out my knives and go to start skinning. And I'm like, if this guy's a butcher, like he's going to get involved.
Sure.
But, Benny being Benny, he was getting involved with a bottle of rum. So after some time goes by, I'm like, why do they call you Butcher? And this kid that worked on the cattle station basically said, because he screws everything up.
Really?
And I was like, that's still an epic nickname.
It is.
Right? I love that so much.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But also, like, that's not an accurate representation of what these things are.
No. I mean, I still use it like that where I'm like, I'm going to butcher this, and then it's, attempting something I don't know how to do.
Yeah.
There are also words that, Instagram doesn't like very much. And I try to get around that.
Yeah.
That part's super interesting to me, that we are, talking about disconnection from death, that like if I spell slaughter when I write it in my Instagram captions, instead of a lowercase l, I do a uppercase I, so that I'm like, maybe the algorithm won't catch it, or AI or whoever's reading these, to sort of like, and because it'll hide those posts.
Right.
But that we're so disconnected from death that like you can't say the word.
Yeah.
Right. And that there's such a negative connotation with something that happens around the world thousands, millions of times a day. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many animals are being slaughtered, every day on the planet.
For sure, millions. If there's like
birds and
billions of people, then there's,
millions. And you can't talk. You can't write the word. I mean, that's just wild to me. And butcher and death and kill. You got to figure out how to spell them differently or use a different letter.
Last year, you couldn't use the word knife.
No. It's like the whole knife community was.
What sits next to your fork? You frickin' googans.
Like, how far are we gonna go in just not being able to talk about any of the things that actually keep us alive?
Are we out there spreading peanut butter with spoons?
Right.
Drove me nuts.
It's wild.
It's like, as many people get killed with hammers. Can I not say hammer?
Yeah.
Get out of here.
Cows kill people. I mean, the stuff that it's wild. It's just, I mean, the cognitive dissonance that is only getting worse in terms of like, not only where our food comes from, that's a part of it, but just how we understand the world around us.
So a lot of what you're talking about is this enforcement of requiring euphemisms to get a point across. Mm-hmm. And, a euphemism is whenever you like water down your language, kind of. I guess in this instance, that's the way I'm using it. In Gates of Fire, a book by Stephen Pressfield about Thermopylae, the Spartans versus the Persians, that whole bit, he talked about the secret that every man has, which is his 100 acts of cowardice every day. And those 100 acts of cowardice are oftentimes so small and often go completely ignored by yourself and unobserved by anybody else. Like they're your secret. That's if you even acknowledge them.
Sure.
And this is an extreme act of cowardice that's being pushed on other people, is to not use the correct word to describe the thing.
Yeah.
So in that light, I would challenge people to at least take the first act of courage and acknowledge your small cowardices. And
that's really interesting.
And you don't have to do anything about it, because we all do it, right?
Yeah.
Like, my shoes aren't laced all the way up. That counts. That's a small act of cowardice.
It's the why, right? Where you're like, why do I do that? Or why do I not do that?
Yeah.
Is it based, in an act of cowardice? That's really interesting. That's funny. I noticed that earlier. I was like, man, those shoelaces are loose.
I even have a whole bit about why I do it to justify it, because it makes me a little bit quieter, because that's important in June.
Yeah. Just driving your truck around. That's hilarious.
It does make you quieter when you hunt if your shoes are loose.
Does it really?
For sure.
They just don't move as abruptly? Like, is it like a...
They kind of flex over the ground. It's like taking the air out of your tires.
Sure.
It gets better traction, right? Yeah.
That's really...
Yeah. But
I don't even have laces.
Yeah. You got the extra tufts, though.
Yeah.
That's Southwest Montana tennis shoes right there. Yeah.
They feel like slippers.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So, Anna, how can people follow along with you? I know that you're writing. Probably not as much as you want to, given everything else that you have going on. You've got the butcher scene here. Jesse has the custom knife business. He's going to be making me a knife to stab a marlin to death with, which is my goal for the year. Yeah. How can people follow along in the adventure and support you?
They can follow my Instagram. I'm on there probably more than I should be, and it's just my name, just Anna Borgman. We also have a Chaos Farms Instagram, which I'm not super active on at the moment, but those are always sort of linked. And eventually, I think the plan is once we finish our house, we're going to, maybe even before we finish it, because I'm just dying to have one, but we need a meat shop, like a legit one, instead of running into town to cut it at a friend's shop or whatever. But we'll eventually probably do some fundraising for that. So if anyone's interested and wants to eventually pitch in for that, that would be pretty cool. And I don't have the details fleshed out yet or anything, but it's expensive to build a shop. So
it is. When you get ready for that, let's talk again and see if we can't get the community on board to help out with that.
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
And it'll be a spot. I mean, really, I wouldn't ask for money if it was like just for me, but I want it to be a place. My ultimate goal is I love teaching slaughter because I like seeing people witness death up close. It's really interesting to watch the emotions that people go through.
University of Montana Western should be offering it as a class.
Yeah.
Like they've poured millions of dollars into horse whispering. Like,
well, maybe I'll approach him and we can see what we can do.
My alma mater there. Anyways.
That would be a good spot for it, though. And, MSU has the meat science program. And I've thought about talking to them, and especially when I was at the shop where we had like a facility to do it. But I don't know. I think I've watched it completely change people's lives.
Yeah.
And my concern right now is the industry in general. We're losing a lot of really good people. People are aging out of it. I know we talked about in Enterprise where the guy's getting older that's doing mobile slaughter. And it's like the thing that pops into my mind there is like, I'll just go out there for a couple months and help that guy and learn his. It's like, this is happening across the country where people are aging out or it's hard work and you can make a really good living off of it if you can get it together.
There's incredible demand.
There is,
the demand is not going to go away.
No, it's not. And I can't imagine.
People aren't going to eat Bill Gates pencil eraser burgers.
No, exactly. They're already, it's already proving itself that it's like people are not going to go that way.
And we need animals to consume the vegetation that's on the landscape to keep it healthy. And they can turn that fiber into protein.
It's magic.
and we cannot.
Yeah.
And we can turn that protein into ourselves and then live happy, healthy lives because of it. Like this is important. But that middleman needs to stand in there with the knife and make that animal into meat.
Yeah. And
I
think there are people, I just know from my own experience, in kind of having my interest sparked in doing that and having a real drive to do it and not taking no for an answer and meeting some really incredible people along the way who helped me. I would really like to be that person for someone else who maybe is interested in it, but a little bit nervous, isn't sure, but wants to try it. And that was what got me here was a few people taking me seriously, and I would love to do that for other people. And so that's that's my goal.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Yeah. I love it so much. And so many people that I get to teach either, they're like, I probably won't do this again, but this has changed my perspective on everything. Or people that are like, I kind of want to do this now, or they go a different route. They end up tanning sheep hides, some aspect of it where they want to get more involved because it's not some gross, scary thing. It's really beautiful and it's hard physical work and you feel good about yourself and you're helping people. And the animals on the landscape thing is huge. My favorite bumper sticker that I have on there is my cows, not condos.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you really think that paving, I don't know what you think is going to happen to this land if there aren't animals on it. It's not, we live in a capitalist society and everything has to make money at this point. And so if it's not beef making money for someone, that grass isn't going to sit there. It's not going to be protected. It's going to be paved over. So that's my concern.
Yeah, or burned up or consumed by weeds.
Yep.
Like, yeah, it's not a balance is a verb.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So,
Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Anna. We're going to have you back, multiple times. This isn't over.
Maybe I'll be my pilot's license that I'm dead set now. I was thinking about it after we talked last time. I was like, it's now I can't stop thinking about it.
Good.
I was like, well, maybe I'll fly out there next time.
Perfect.
And I just did,
We've got an airstrip on the ranch.
That's perfect. Yeah. I mean, I do 24-hour drives, and it'd be real nice if I could just pop over in a plane.
Yeah, that Frank Church really makes it hard. You got to go way around that son of a gun.
That's right.
All right. Well, thanks so much. And keep up the good work. I think you've got one of the most beautiful minds in butchery.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you to everyone who has taken the time out of their busy lives to write a review for the show and share it with their friends. I'm extremely proud of how intelligent, engaged, and adventurous this audience is. Original music for the Six Ranch podcast is written and performed by Justin Hay. Art for the Six Ranch podcast was created by John Chatelain and digitized by Celia Harlander. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next week.